Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to some on the West Coast. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today. This is part 2 of our ITSM 101 series. The title of today's webinar is Moving Beyond Ticketing, Embracing Change for the Better. And as well, we've got a lot of new people that have joined today, so that are going to be looking at sort of Careworks from the first time and sort of hearing from our side. So originally what we were going to do is sort of skip right into sort of moving beyond ticketing and what some of the leading companies in the enterprise are doing with ITSM and sort of branching that out into the other aspects of the company, into HR, facilities, and into things like problem change management. What we're going to do, because there is a lot of new people joining part 2 today, is just do a quick intro of Careworks again, and then we'll dive into it. So this is Derek Poitras speaking. I'm the sales manager here for Careworks, and I run the ITSM and Managed Services division. And I'm joined by Jason Murphy, who's one of our senior sales engineer and the lead on our ITSM and Managed Services side. So the format for today, Jason and I will just be going back and forth. Again, what we really want to focus on is, if you already have an ITSM tool in place, really, how you move that forward. And if you're looking at potentially revamping your tools, what options are out there and what you should be focusing on when you're trying to mature your ITSM strategy within the organization. Again, I'll just cover Careworks quickly because it's a lot of people on the call's first look. We've been around 30 years and sort of started in the hardware, software side, and as IT matured, so did our organization. So moving into providing co-managed services, enterprise service desk services, just to help organizations that were looking at maturing their internal IT processes. And over the years, we've amassed a lot of customers and different types of customers. We have customers that are, in the 50 employee range. We have customers that are in the 15,000 employee range. So we do have quite a wide spectrum there. And the reason is we do offer a lot of different services to our customers. So we've got about 15,000 customers that we service around the globe. The majority of our customers are here in North America, and that accounts for just over about a million end users. And our service desk handles just north of 500,000 tickets annually now. So when you sort of look at Careworks and what we do, I'm just going to break it down into 4 sections for you. And really what we're going to focus on today is you would see on the screen is sort of the third arrow, the Managed ITSM division. But just to give you a high-level overview, we have our 24/7 service desk, which is really our enterprise service desk. What this does is just gives you the ability to hand off frontline technical support and extend capabilities of our customers' in-house teams. A lot of times they sort of say to us, look, we want you guys to take away the noise. Or maybe it's after-hours support. They don't want to extend their team and have guys coming in late and working around the clock, so they'll have us help them with that. The other side is the co-managed services. So as I mentioned, we came from the hardware, software days and moved into a managed service provider. We're actually one of the top 25 MSPs in North America. So we do quite a bit there. And really what that's aimed at doing is allowing your internal IT department to, again, extend capabilities through a partnership mentality and leverage us for expertise, really to augment the internal workings of your own environment. We see a lot of our customers, they experience turnover in IT. The average is about 18 months. So sometimes they'll have us come in and be a remote sysadmin or help with projects and things of that nature. Now within the Managed ITSM division, and where we're going to focus today, and we'll actually sort of give you a demo as well. Jason's going to give you a tour of our ITSM product that we've built off of ServiceNow. Within there, we've got really 4 pillars. So Grand Central is the name of the product that we've productized, and we sort of point that product at the mid-market to the enterprise. ServiceNow is the leading ITSM platform out there, so they do a fantastic job with the global 2K market space. Your Googles, your Pepsis, your Coca-Colas, right? So we've sort of notched our way just below that into the mid-market, where companies really want that extensibility and that flexibility of a platform like ServiceNow, but potentially don't have maybe the resources or potentially the budget to implement a solution within that mid-market arena. So we'll touch on that product. We also have our enterprise service desk that we couple in with the managed ITSM. Again, I talked about the service desk, and then our remote sysadmin service, which is unique. So if there's anyone on the call today that has ServiceNow, as you know, it requires internal sysadmins to run that platform. So we do a remote sysadmin service. A lot of companies that are experiencing transition or turnover can lean on us to help them with their own instance of ServiceNow if they have it. And then I talked about the hardware software side. We really offer that just to be the one hand to shake for our customers so that we can fill all of the gaps for them. Now, we talked about moving beyond ticketing, and there's a few different ways to look at that. You can look at it purely from a ticketing perspective and say, okay, my users email into my help desk or my ticketing solution, and sort of Jason will define that for us in a minute. But I wanted to put this pyramid up and sort of start with that so you could see, from our perspective when we work with customers, really we look at from the bottom up. So one, what do they have in place for ITSM or service desk or help desk or ticketing? How mature are they? Is it just incident management? Have they rolled out problem change and so forth? But it's not just ticketing or incident management. We also look at what are they monitoring, and actually the machine intervention, what do you have in place to be proactive, to feed the ticketing or incident system you have proactively? So we look at automation there, we look at monitoring, and it's really just about maturing the organization. We've been doing this a long time, so a lot of times when we get into an organization to help them, they've got a lot of disparate tools, they're doing a lot of firefighting, there's not a lot of automation in place, so that's really where we focus on. And the first step is really looking at what tools they're using, and then helping them adopt an ITSM solution that, one, will focus on the end user experience. A lot of, I talk to a lot of customers day in, day out, and Jason as well. And a lot of what we hear is, we have a portal with our solution now, but none of our users use it. They just email us, they fire over a text, or they phone in. And there isn't sort of that one system of record. The other thing we see is ITSM sort of be locked into just their IT division, and it's not extended to HR or facilities. So we sort of take a holistic approach, look at what they've got, and then sort of show them what's possible with other companies are doing out there. And then the other thing is, are they doing proactive services? Do they have SolarWinds in place? That's another partner of ours along with ServiceNow. To get a full view of the network, but from a proactive standpoint. So it's not just users submitting incidents. It may be the monitoring system that's actually picking up a problem that's persistent, right? So that's sort of step one. And then from there, whether you have your own internal IT team or you're looking for help from a partnership perspective, really it's the same thing. A managed service provider acts as an internal IT department would within their own environment. So we sort of go down that road to look at, what does the network look like? Are you looking at moving to the cloud? Are you looking at, sort of expanding infrastructure migrations? And then how do you optimize that once you've made either that transition or look at the infrastructure in place? So how do you wrap the services around it to be proactive and really make raving fans of your end users? When we sort of take that and we look at it from a transformation standpoint, there's traditional IT, and then, like I said, what we do is sort of look at where you guys are at and help you move sort of up the chain from there. A lot of our customers are getting to a point where they're creating like a cloud store for that end user experience so that they can go in and self-serve really what they need across IT, HR, and make requests and self-serve those through just for optimization on both front ends. So I'm going to sort of pass it over to Jason. What I'd like to do is we're going to focus on number one, sort of the blue pillar here that you see, ITSM. And again, we're talking about moving beyond ticketing. So what can you do with the tools out there beyond ticketing? But I thought it would be good if Jason could maybe define for us, because I hear a lot of customers say different things. They call it ticketing, they call it service desk, they call it help desk, IT service management. So maybe we'll just sort of break that down, and I'll let Jason do that, and then Jason and I will go back and forth here for you for the rest of the component.
Thanks, Derek. Hey everybody, my name's Jason. Just a little bit of background on me. I've been in IT for the better part of close to 20 years now. Clawed my way up to the sales engineering peak at this point. But historically, I started off in a help desk. I worked for a company where I was the kind of IT lead, and we're not going back as far as the 80s, mind you, but back in the 90s, that's how I kind of started out. And historically, that's how a help desk really transitioned. Back in the 80s, it was someone who was kind of tech savvy enough within the internal organization who would really just help end users. And that's how it really kind of began. And then people would staff as kind of IT-centric people who would then just help end users. Now, through the evolution of help desk, there then became the service desk. And the important part there is that when ITIL, which stands for the IT Information Library, what that basically means is back in the 80s when ITIL began, what happened is that that service desk really started to flourish. Right, it changed the reactive mindset of when I have a problem, I need a help desk person to fix it, to a service-centric approach to IT. And that's really what ITIL is about. Now, as you can see there at the bottom, is that the focus was on incidents and service requests, right? So, and I'll get into a little bit of that as we move forward. But basically around, I would say, the mid-90s, even actually, I would say probably the mid-2000s here in North America, around 2004, 2005 is when kind of IT service management really kind of became the norm, right? Either from a software perspective or even from an IT service delivery perspective. You always had varying departments, whether it's finance, legal, HR, facilities, whatever you may have internally, requesting service from IT. So instead of, asking, Derek to come fix my computer, it was, let's log a ticket, right? And that's really about IT service management. That's at least one focus of IT service management. Now, and that really, again, began probably mid-2000s, at least here in North America, ITIL being started off in the UK. Now, just to kind of talk about the ITSM adoption, and the reason why we look at ITSM is because, incidents are coming in from just about everywhere. They can come in from internal, they can come in from external, your customers potentially. Incidents are broken down as, one is something broken. And then this is more IT-centric stuff. Your IT person internally is looking to fix things, right? So when you have a sysadmin or a network engineer, is something broken? Is something down? Or is there a performance issue? Hey, my computer is slow, or my connection is slow. Now, a lot of those requests are also coming in from end users. And end users is a very vague term because end users can also mean maybe yourself, myself, but also the customer, right? Those can be things like inquiries. I need access. Add me to this, install that. As you can see, move, modify, and change. Now, there's a certain amount of noise that comes along with all of this, and that's where we get into kind of just dealing with that noise. And at least historically, I would say companies, at least that I've been dealing with, and again, Derek did show you that we deal with about 15,000 of them, is that a lot of them are still kind of stuck in this old world mentality. And it's really no one's fault. It's how we do business. And the real issue has to center around email. Email's been around for probably close to 40 years now, and we're still using it. Even when we try to get away from it, it's often our business backbone, right? The problem with that is that when you start looking at email and spreadsheets, when you get chat messages or calls, everything needs to be logged in some kind of digital format. And that can come in from IT or HR, a security team, again, finance, legal, wherever it's coming in from. Again, it has to be collated within one central portal, and that again creates a lot of what we call ticketing noise, right? Now, again, I divided that up in terms of incidents and requests, but there are some others as well. Now, and especially when you start looking at remote management monitoring tools or network monitoring tools, that creates even additional noise, right? So this is what happens, is that you have to try to fight the noise, right? So it's one of those things that when we're looking at combating noise, we just deal with it, right? As IT people.
Like a lot of the products that I see companies using, whether it's Remedy or whether it's Manage Engine or there's a lot of them out there. Like, why do you think, because all of them have front end portals, or they talk about it, or they sort of advertise it, like, is it just a case of not being able to teach an old dog new tricks? Like, why are they not using the front end to be able to capture all that in one system and have a single system of record? Why do you think everyone defaults sort of back to these ways? Like, I hear a lot of people say, yeah, our email, our users just email, and then the email goes ahead and opens a ticket within our ITSM tool.
The reason why that happens is it's not necessarily a technology problem. Is that IT service management is a very broad spectrum of things. There's a lot of moving parts. When you start looking at like the CMDB, which in my opinion is probably central to any ITSM, some do it well and some don't do it so well. But the important part is that's all of your assets, either in a kind of a logical representation of your assets. So you're looking at servers, or you're looking at Windows devices, maybe Macs or tablets, or it's a logical view of those assets. The problem is that we're so centered around dealing with the problem or dealing with the incident or the requests that we kind of get away from the core piece, right? And that is really the CMDB, because it's the heart of your IT organization, and we all kind of know that, but we're also just trying to keep our heads above water, fighting those problems.
Yeah, firefighting.
It's that firefighting mentality that you were talking about earlier. So it's one of those things where people use ticketing, but don't often have a partner, kind of like ourselves, that really kind of understand the inner workings of a ServiceNow or our product Grand Central, where we've kind of adopted those kind of ITIL best practices and locked them into ITSM. ServiceNow is, you describe it all the time as like it's like a box of Lego. You can kind of build your own, put it all together, but unless you have those core concepts, that foundation to build it the way it's supposed to be built, it's often, done in kind of, I would say, a mediocre kind of mindset.
Right.
And that's what happens from a lot of these vendors that are out there.
They give you the Lego box and say go
and kind of go, right? You can kind of fill in the blanks and build it yourself. We've given you all the drop downs that you need, but there's no real kind of best practice that's built around it, right? And ITIL's been around for, obviously, as you know, 30 plus years. It's more than just a framework. It's how IT people and even outside of IT really need to focus the business. Because now that we're getting into what is now called lean IT, and if you've maybe heard some of these terms in terms of DevOps or Agile concepts, it now is the time to really start looking at kind of how to do it better.
Right. So, like I don't know. A lot of the people I talk to, they want to make the move. It's sort of, they're looking at new tools, better ways to do it. But a lot of them are sort of stuck on it, right? For some reason, I know sometimes it's resource, sometimes it's like you said, they want to do it, but they don't have the best practices, so they sort of stay with what they're comfortable with. What does it cost? Like, what do you think the downside is if they don't sort of start adopting, the new technology?
Sure, I'm just going to kind of go into what is the cost of doing nothing, right? My tool is adequate. I think it's doing an okay job. But if there's any kind of IT director or a CFO that's potentially listening here, there is a cost of doing nothing to your business, and we are all trying to make efficiencies within our organizations the best we can. And even though this is a kind of an IT-centric tool or an IT-centric mindset, it applies to all aspects of your business. first thing is, do you have unproductive employees? Are all employees running at 100%? I can tell you I do not run at 100% all of the time. Although if my VP is listening, yes, I do. I'm just kidding. But the important part here is because of that, there is now a higher operating cost. So, and that is why the IT service management strategy is really in place, is to really lower the operating cost of your business.
Like, do you think the self-service portion really facilitates that? Like, you hear a lot of it. Like, I've seen a lot of our customers who help implement a lot of the self-service solutions. Like, I guess that would want to be the big drivers for unproductive employees, sort of just sitting around waiting for requests, waiting for things to happen.
That's it. But you're talking about philosophical changes within any organization, right? Because everybody is stuck in email, right? So part of that is this strategy around Grand Central, where you give them this Amazon look and feel to ITSM that is just intuitive, feels like social media, right? Like, you just know how to use it. If you've been on Twitter or Facebook or whatever flavor of social media you kind of spend time on, or if you've ever done any online shopping, it's all about just ease of use, that your end users can just get it.
Just add it to your cart and go.
That's it. Now, again, another reason for looking at ITSM as well is because of slow resolution times. When your techs are doing remote control day in, day out just to fix problems. I mean, it's one of those things. There's better ways of doing things. Now, one example I like to give is patching computers, right? We all know ransomware is out there. We know that there's tons of vulnerabilities all out there in the wild, and we have to look at AV, and we have to look at patching our computers, because if we don't, if from an IT point of view, if you don't patch a computer, you're putting your company at risk, or you're putting your IT organization at risk of not plugging those holes. Same thing with antivirus. If we're not keeping those AV endpoints up to date, well, what happens is that they're at risk of infection. And then somebody has to get in there and fix those problems, and it's taking more and more time. So these are preventative measures that we're doing, right? The other one is, perimeter security in terms of, just the firewall, right? Firewalls are there to really protect your organization from a device perspective. The internet comes through it, and it's kind of blocking some protocols and some ports so that, hackers aren't getting in there and looking through your stuff. Now, the important part there is, if we're not keeping that firmware up to date as well, then you've got these problems. Now, from a business point of view, right, from an operational point of view, what happens if we do nothing with ITSM? What if we're using an old ITSM? You mentioned a couple vendors earlier. I've been using them for a few years or longer. I still kind of see that as, and you can see this in the middle, is that I can do that in a spreadsheet type of thinking. They log an email, or they send an email to my ticketing solution. And maybe it auto generates a ticket for my team, but then somebody has to triage that ticket and put it into the right bucket that the right resource is now going to get it. That is why self-service is, in my opinion, along with the CMDB, one of the most important features that we're going to bring to the table, right? Because you're making ease of use, right? So what I tell people when I onboard our customers is that first thing you want to do is really change the mindset of your organization. That's sometimes a daunting task, but when you bounce back an email and it says, click this link, right? And then fill out 4 little drop downs, right? That is the self-service, right? Now, one thing I do want to touch on is that I found really interesting in terms of a Gallup poll is that increased revenue, decreased costs, faster delivery times, all depends on an engaged workforce. Again, that is that change of mindset, right? Now again, companies with highly engaged workforces outperform their peers by 147%. That is why it's advantageous for any company to look at these kind of tools, right? Now, is your current, and this is a question that you have to ask yourself, is your ITSM keeping your employees productive, right? Does it have incident management? Probably. Any ticketing solution, any ITSM solution, all of the enterprise service management solutions out there have incident management, but does it have problem management? in terms of problem management. I'll kind of describe this as I give a demo a little bit later on. But looking at incident problem change are probably the three most important things that you're going to bring to your organization, along with that ITIL framework, right?
Right.
If it has order fulfillment, self-service, change management, service level agreements, increasing the end user experience, you're then lowering your cost of doing business instead of increasing it and taking up more cycles and putting more manpower at things.
So I guess, I hear a lot where, the clients are saying, okay, we want to make some changes. We want to implement maybe problem management, maybe change. We're not using the CMDB in ours, or, things like that. So I hear a lot, we need a new system, but we don't know sort of how to get there, right? And so a lot of times there's a lot of acknowledgement sort of that they want something else in place. And so a lot of the talk is around having a system that allows easy requests for service. Not only from IT, though. I'm hearing a lot now. It's like, HR wants to be part of this, right? Like onboarding a new employee.
Or even offboarding a new employee. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to offboarding employees. You've got access issues, you've got forms that need to be completed, etc.
And a lot of it, what I'm finding is sort of that they want the same, single point of record, but they want the same front end. And then they want the product to be intuitive to know, okay, the user that's submitting that, right, to be able to capture who that user is, route them to the right back end, right, to the right person or actioner on the other side. And so I hear a lot of it coming from the end user side. And so, it sort of comes back to, well, how am I going to do that with email, right? Mm-hmm. Then I'm emailing 20 different people or 20 different departments. Or what we've focused on, and I guess, maybe would be a good point after this, Jason, if we can sort of, walk through maybe an example instance of, what we've done with a lot of customers where that keeps coming up is how do I sort of centralize where they can communicate with IT, with HR, with facilities, and give the actioners the visibility into, okay, what's coming in from who, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about what's between the requester, right, that's saying I need this, I need that, or this is broke, or can you fix this, and how we use automation in workflows, right, sort of on the best practice side, one, to hopefully self-serve, but two, if we can, sort of route to the right actioners so that, it's being expedited in a fashion, like you said, that's not resulting in downtime and unproductive employees. So we see it, from our side, maybe you can get into the demo, but I think it's important to have all those features, incident problem change, but it be holistic in the approach that it could work across the organization as well. Right.
And the example I always like to give is, just even provisioning a new laptop to a new employee. Obviously, HR has done their job. They've got a desk. But somebody has to get them a device of some sort. Whether that's a laptop, a desktop, maybe a tablet.
So wouldn't I just email you and say, Jason, gym's starting on Monday, can you get a laptop?
And you know what? And we've been there, right? So it's one of those things where you're onboarding new employees.
Jason, I just got a response. Jason's on vacation.
That's it.
Right.
And it's one of those things that there's a lot of balls that can be dropped in between getting that laptop, getting my director's approval for the cost, getting it to finance, getting it to fulfillment or somebody who's going to order it for me, and then obviously having it then placed on my desk and then joined to the domain. And there's a lot of actions that have to happen. A lot of moving parts, yeah. Right? But you have to create a life cycle. And this is the ITIL life cycle approach to IT service management, is that our platform is designed with that life cycle already designed in there. Right? And it's one of those things where we've talked to plenty of customers together, and it's like, okay, but I want to do this, or I want to make this change, and you can definitely do that within our system, and then we'll help you, design it and make changes the way you want. But out of the box, it's already designed with those processes in need. Right? And I can talk forever about it. Let's just hop into the technology and kind of do a quick guided tour here. So the one thing I kind of want to show people is, especially from a front end perspective, is that it's obviously, here's my mock customer in terms of Acme.
Lollipops.
Now, Acme lollipops here, over 1 billion lollipops shipped. But giving a simple and easy to use interface for an end user. Obviously, for the people listening on the line, obviously this would be rebranded with obviously the company background or whatever your website looks like. But when I can come in here and simply submit a problem, right? When I submit that incident to your IT people, that's right here. It's 4 fields.
So I'm looking at basically these would be the more our customers will see, these are the common things that I see. These are the tiles I want. Submit a ticket, make a request, which could be I need a laptop,
right,
or I need a new chair,
or I need a form from HR.
Right.
Right. It can really be anything you want it to be. Right. Now we would work with you in terms of what you want it to be, but
right,
it's one of those things where if I click submit a request, right, and then of course let me log in here. Submit a request. It can be anything. I can create workflows based on what those requests might be.
Right.
This is about ease of use,
right,
Derek. This is how we're going to, transition, provision a new laptop to, getting the proper approvals and getting it on the desk and joined to the domain. It's all based on these tiles, and people can fill this out very easily. The good news here is that when I want to, order a new workstation, this is my step. As the end user requesting it, this is my first step.
Right.
But behind the scenes, there's 30 other steps that are going to kind of take place.
Right.
And that's where the balls don't get dropped. Right.
So that's the workflow automation
piece.
That's
it. It's all kind of automated in the background, right? And that's the intuitive design. I mean, as simplistic as we've made it here.
Right.
That's the intuitive design that we're kind of bringing to the table. It's in software terms we call that UX, right? User experience. Once upon a time, devs had kind of full control to kind of build code the way the requirements were kind of laid out from the product manager. Well, that has now shifted, right? We have a middleman, or middle person, we'll call them, who gets in there and really tries to understand, mechanics of design, and we've really got that kind of nailed down.
Can you go back to that sort of front page? So this would, in this example, this is the end user portal where I would come to connect with whatever department I need to. Mm-hmm. What I hear a lot when customers come out the other end and they've got their instance dialed in, a lot of times sort of that 80-20 rule where 80% of them have the same sort of pieces in place. It's tweaked a bit obviously to their environment, mm-hmm. but I mean in terms of the workflows and automations, a lot of times it's sort of, they built off our best practices, right? So in your experience, how customized does it need to be, or should you just follow the best practices that are there instead of reinventing the wheel?
Well, from a lot of the IT directors and the folks that I've spoken to is especially with looking at, they've looked at ServiceNow and they love the capabilities, but how to get it off the ground first of all. Just even develop. I mean, you're the dollars and cents guy, but you know how expensive building this can be to any organization, right? Yeah. So the 20 rule, absolutely, we can do the additional 20%, but the 80% is already pre-built.
Yeah. So I guess it's hard for the people listening to see what we've done in the background. So a new customer comes on basically in a couple weeks, this is already pre-designed, it's customized for their look and feel. Mm-hmm. And then in the back end, all the workflows not I guess the best way to put it is we've taken a year of development of someone that would stand up a ServiceNow platform on their own, giving it to them on day one, and then we can make just tweaks to that. Is that a good way to put it?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And that's the benefit of kind of our Grand Central offering, right? Is that it's already pre-built. It already has all of the ITIL best practices already designed behind the scenes. I know you can't really see it in front of you, but somebody's got to go in there, kind of program it the way that we've done it, and that can be tweaked in terms of that 20% rule.
Right. What's pretty cool front end? I'm sure there's probably some people that work on the back side of the house too. Can you maybe show us the support view? And
of course. So let's hop into the support view. And as a kind of an IT administrator with my Acme admin account, Again, this is my enterprise CMDB, so this is where, again, I have a logical representation of my assets, not from just a kind of a physical device perspective, which I do have, servers, network devices, what have you, but also things like email or my Oracle database, right? You're able to get in here and really see things the way they want, or the way the IT people need, because you need to have things like asset information, right? Serial numbers, expiries, license keys, all of it, right? You need to know what applications are installed per workstation or per server, right? So it's all contained within your CMDB as what we call a CI, a configuration item. And there's obviously with any ITSM, IT service management, there's a lot of acronyms, but as we go through, we'll kind of talk about a few of these.
I see on the screen, you've got incidents, right? And we talked about ticketing being sort of the main piece, and then where people are going from incident management. What are usually the next steps outside of incident management that they'll take a solution like this?
Right. So, when you're looking at, I think we all get incidents. I don't think we have to talk too much about incidents. Obviously, we're going to be able to create a form that an IT person can fill out and drop down in terms of either server issue or network issue. We all kind of get that part. But when you start looking at incidents or noise as a whole, right? There's over 400 pre-built reports that are already in here ready to go, where you can really focus your problem management on root cause analysis.
Right.
And for anyone on the line who has at least some ITSM background, your end users, your customers want to know what that root cause analysis is, or even the IT director who may be on this line want to know why things are happening and why they're happening, right? And then how do I resolve this so it's not happening again? And that's really tying into the problem management, right? So if I have if I keep getting printer issues across my organization, well, let's log a problem and have somebody investigate that and remedy the issues so it's not affecting the 20, 30, 50 other people. Right. And that's where problem management really comes in. It's a huge benefit to any ITSM. And if you have one currently, it's usually underutilized, and that's probably because of resourcing. Right? So, because everyone's firefighting with incidents, right? So this is where the problem piece comes in. Now, the change management piece, probably one of my favorites, is that when you start looking here, I'll just go into standard change. When you start looking at, a standard server change, you're able to come and get in here and reboot the Windows server. It's already templated. This is one I've already pre-built. Okay? And I simply walk through a wizard, right? And this kind of takes care of all of my, in terms of my change management board, or what was called a cab in ITIL. You're able to get in there and get, the VP involved, right? Obviously, somebody's got to do the proper sign-off. If I'm trying to make changes to my my web server, but that's also the back end of my business, because it's doing all the financial transactions. That's got to have some visibility across many people, as opposed to an IT person going in there and just doing a reboot at midnight, or scheduling a reboot. Right. So it's all in here in terms of assess and authorize. All of that, ITIL best practices already built in.
Right. So this is, just for everyone on the line with us, so this is enterprise service now. So, really what we've done is, I talked about, our customer base being as small as, 50 employees to 15,000. And really what we've done is we've found that ServiceNow is attractive to most IT internal organizations. It just sometimes doesn't scale down well below a few thousand employees, or an IT department of a couple hundred IT personnel. So what we've done is built out the instance on ServiceNow. So this is enterprise ServiceNow you're looking at. What we did was really just took, I guess a good analogy is that 80-20. We've taken 80% of what customers need out of the box, built it out for them, stood it up, so when they step into the product, they're really getting what you're showing here. It's already built out. I guess, would that be a good way to put it? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pre-built out of the box. Right. But we both know, there are customers that will go in and want to make some changes. We'll work with them on those changes, obviously steering them in the right direction in terms of any kind of consultancy or what have you.
Yeah.
In terms of our own onboarding team. But it's one of those things where it's already pre-built.
Yeah.
Right. And like we were using the Lego analogy earlier, you get basically a blank canvas with ServiceNow.
Right.
And you can have them build it for you, but that is obviously a very
well, I guess not everyone has sysadmins or their own development staff too, right? Like a lot of the customers that I work with, they got a good IT team, but they're not developers, or they don't want them doing that. They just want to use sort of the system and say,
right,
we want to follow ITIL, we want ITSM, yeah, we want problem change, but just sort of give me the best practice on it. Okay, cool.
Right. So, obviously we can go through deeper dive in terms of the demo. There's things like the configuration management database that's built in. Again, if you have a current ITSM, obviously ours is pretty awesome and kind of built out. But the CMDB is really where I kind of point people in the right direction in terms of building out a comprehensive ITSM solution. Again, 400 reports are built into our report, giving your IT team real kind of true visibility in terms of dashboarding or reporting. And obviously our service level manager is also built in here as well. Informing your team when
SLAs are breached and
that's
stuff
it.
like that. Yeah,
That's it.
We've been talking a little bit about analogies. I just put this one together because it's relatable. How do you want your pizza? But the idea here is there's a ton of ITSM products out there. If you read a Gartner report or something like that, certainly ServiceNow and BMC, and you'll see Sharewell sort of up in the right-hand quadrant. And all those are, most of them now are SaaS-based, right? ServiceNow was born in the cloud. So, if you think of pizza as a service, right, and after this webinar, you're hungry, and you're going to go out and you're going to, pizza's what you're going to have tonight for supper. Right, you've got a few options to do that, and I relate this back, and this can be related to the IT world, but specifically we're talking about ITSM. So you've got, the traditional way of doing it, which would be going out and make it yourself. You go out, you buy the product. We talked about it at the beginning, and then you build everything from the ground up. You buy, the cheese, the toppings, the tomato sauce. They're all disparate, and you try and piece those together, and there's some, you can get some, what would you say, for someone that's building that, at the end of it, you get that, okay, that was cool, I put that together. But it takes a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah, the satisfaction. It takes a lot of time. In most cases, when you try and my wife and I have done this tons of time, you think you're going to save yourself money building it at home, but then you have to buy the whole pepperoni and the whole brick of cheese and the whole jar of tomato sauce. It ends up costing you 3 times more than just ordering a pizza. So then there's the option, right? So you can sort of just build it from scratch, ton of time, ton of resources. You got to throw everything at it. You could go out, to the grocery store and just pick up one of those freezer ones, bring it home and bake it. But then you're still providing, right, the electricity, the oven. You got to fire that thing up, the dining table, the drinks, right? So there's still some work that goes along with that. And then you've got platform as a service. So think of that as pizza delivery, right? You're just going to, hey, pizza's what I want. I'm dialing the pizza guy. He delivers the pizza. But still there's that aspect where I got to clean up after it, right? I got to set the table. I got to bring the drinks to the table. But we're getting closer to the model where it's like, okay, I want pizza. I'm going to go sit down. I'm going to go dine out. And I'm going to have everything delivered to me. And I'm not going to lift a finger. And I'm just going to get what I want. And at the end of the day, that's pizza tonight, right? And so the restaurant manages everything for me. And I just walk out. But then if I want it again, I can go back and use it, right? And I can go back and sit down and order the pizza again. So that's sort of the analogy with ITSM. And really what we've done here is said, okay, there are companies that are going to want to build their own. And that's why we do the implementations of, with ServiceNow, and we have our remote sysadmin services. There's companies that are going to sort of want, to get to a certain point and then have the last 20% customized, and we can do that. And then there's some companies, that are really just going to want to use the product and say, give me the best practice approach and just let me use, what you guys, based on your experience, have built out. So that's sort of what we've done. And you think about what we've done with ServiceNow is productized it so that you can just start using it based on a best practice approach. And if you look at, some of the, leading companies out there, that's what they've done with the product. And they've focused on, moving away from traditional tools into, in these cases, they all use ServiceNow, Yale, Sony, and Latham Watkins. And really the main takeaways from Yale was their meantime resolution. If you look at the bullet points on the screen, what they're able to do is consolidate 5 applications into the cloud, mature their ITSM process, and they actually were able to introduce a lot of self-service. So they improved their meantime to resolution by 40%. And they had a ton of cost savings because they moved off of HP Service Manager, and they had about 5-10 resources depending on the time when they had to do upgrades in that dedicated to that on-premise infrastructure. So pretty cool. And then Sony, theirs was all about sort of end user self-service, and they actually ripped out their old tool, stood up ServiceNow within 60 days, leveraging a managed service provider, which is pretty cool because a lot of the stories you hear, it's years to get that, or 6 months to a year to stand it up. And Latham Watkins, like Sony, they started using ServiceNow to automate services delivery, and they quickly understood that it was really a business process product, sort of like we talked about. It's not. They moved from it being an IT-centric tool.
Right. It's more than just IT.
So more to that platform approach. So that's really what we've done with with Grand Central. It said, look, take that pizza analogy. Let's go dine out tonight, right? And what Grand Central has is all these features built in. So you've got the main, I guess, steak and potatoes that you'd want, right? Incident, problem, change, the cool end user portal, the knowledge base. So asset management and the SLA reporting. So that's the idea is, if you're looking at a best practice approach, if you're looking at modernizing your end user experience, modernizing your ITSM, then it could be an option. But really what we wanted to do is sort of give you some possibilities that are out there today. And, if you do want any additional information, we're going to be sending out this recording to all the attendees. So you have that. And with that will be the contact information. If you have any questions, if you want some guidance in any area, Jason can provide, or our team, if you're looking at options out there. I just thought I'd finish with this because it just gives you an idea of, maybe based on the size of your organization, what sort of fits the bill for you, right? In terms of, and whether that's Grand Central or whether it's, your own ServiceNow, the idea is, companies that we see over, sort of 1,000 employees, that ServiceNow application really starts to resonate with them. And then on the managed service side, we resell SolarWinds. And Jason, maybe you can just talk just quickly about SolarWinds and how that ties in with like an IT incident management solution, just sort of round off the tools side.
Sure. I mean, at least from a ticketing perspective, it's one of those things where, everyone's doing ticketing. Whether you're, 20 seats or whether you're 2,000, right? But somebody has to manage endpoints, right? So, whether that is, your end user workstations or those servers. I come from a kind of a network monitoring background. So when I used to work for SolarWinds, it's one of those things where, the tool kind of, sends out alerts.
Right.
But it's also making heads or tails of those alerts, and that's where ServiceNow can come in and really dial in kind of what is most important versus maybe just a performance hit or a performance issue. I mean, and that's always the challenge with any remote management monitoring tool or any kind of network monitoring tool, is that a lot of it just turns into noise. Somebody has to get in there and decipher it. Well, let automation, let ServiceNow do all that heavy lifting so that what is priority, right? And that's where tools like ServiceNow really kind of stand out.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Well, I mentioned if you have any questions, what we're going to do now is we've got just about 8 minutes left till the top of the hour, so we're just going to go to the questions now. So if you have any questions, just pop them in there, and we can go go through those. Let me just open this up now. And I just put up on the screen as well, within the follow-up email, we'll send out, we're having a part 3 on September 19th, which is actually going to be with our CEO and our Vice President of Sales, so our CEO Mark Scott and Marco Lavecchia. So we'll be going through that on the 19th of September at the same time. So we've got a couple questions here that I'll take. The first one is, what type of costs are associated with, well, ServiceNow implementations that we've seen? So it really ranges. I guess a good way to answer that, from what we've seen working with customers that are standing up their own ServiceNow instance, is it depends on the number of, they call it fulfiller licenses, the number of technicians that are going to be using the product. It's not a cost for the end user to submit incidents. It's really the actioners that are taking those incidents, and it could be, IT, it could be HR, and fulfilling on those requests. And the licenses range based on the version of the product and based on the features, but sort of ballpark would be anywhere from $100 to $150 a license a month for the licensing. And then the implementations, depending on how many technicians you're standing up and how many features or customizations you require. How many departments you're integrating, that can range from 50,000 to honestly 500,000 we've seen on some implementation partners. So that's sort of where, I don't want to toot our horn, but that's sort of why Grand Central resonates with a lot of the mid-market customers, because they don't have any of the implementation costs. They just step into the product and start using it on a subscription, which for some of those companies works better. One of the other questions here is for Jason. It just asks, with tools outside of ticketing, as we're talking about, I guess, on the theme of going beyond ticketing, like what tools have you seen be successful in automating service delivery? I guess maybe like things like patching. I'm not sure what they mean to automate, but
Sure. Automation is obviously a really kind of robust name in either monitoring circles or in ITSM. It goes to say that when you start looking at workflow automation, that is your biggest business gain, right? When those, as I say, I's are dotted and those T's are crossed, when nobody's dropping those balls, that is the most advantageous part to something like Grand Central. It is out of the box. It is turnkey, right? So instead of having to kind of piece all your Legos and build your castle, if you want to add a room, hey, no problem. But nobody wants to go from basement up, right? And that's where that you were just talking about, where that financial investment is in something like ServiceNow. But we've already done a lot of that heavy lifting already.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like that's all the questions for now. You'll see on the screen here, we've got sales@careworks.com. If it always happens after these things, you sort of think of questions after, so fire those through. We're going to put together a follow-up email, like I said, with the recording and send that out to everyone. As well, there will be a separate email with the Starbucks gift card that you'll get, obviously, for attending the webinar. So I just want to thank everyone for their time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we catch up with you on part 3 in mid-September. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.